appreciate the discussions on the Innovative Startup Act strategic plan. May I request USAID upskill? Thank you very much from all the steering committee members. So the Philippines is one of the few countries in Asia that has a specific law for startups, the Innovative Startup Act, RA 1137, which was signed by then President Rodrigo Duterte. With the signing of the law, the Innovative Startup Act Steering Committee was formed through a joint administrative order by the DOST, DTI, and the ICT. The ISA Steering Committee is tasked to provide strategic guidance and oversight in the formulation, implementation, and development of the Philippine Startup Development Program. The Philippine Startup Development Program is composed of programs and initiatives for startups and startup enablers. The ISA Steering Committee is chaired in rotation by the lead agencies, which are the Department of Trade and Industry, who led us for the last maybe more than 2 years kasi nag-pandemic. Kaya si Yusek Lita ang medyo matagal na nag-lead ng ISA. And last year, she reported all the accomplishments of ISA. We also have the Department of Information and Communications Technology, which will also serve for another 2 years after DOST's term. So that will be next year. So by next year, it's going to be the ICT. But for now, you have to be contented with me because I am the chair from last year, November 2023 to 2025. So, other relevant government agencies such as the National Development Company, the Department of Finance, the Department of Foreign Affairs, among others, are also invited in the ISA Steering Committee as needed. Ms. Diane Eustaquio and Mr. Jojo Flores are also part of the steering committee as the private sector representatives. Last August 11 to 12, 2023, the first ever ISA Steering Committee Strategic Planning Workshop was held in Makati City with the support of the Research Triangle Institute under the U.S.-Philippines Partnership for Skills, Innovation, and Lifelong Learning Program. The workshop brought together relevant government agencies and the private sector to discuss pressing issues and challenges of the Philippine startup ecosystem and develop the Philippine Startup Development Plan covering 2025 to 2030 that will guide the ISA Steering Committee in the implementation of programs, projects, and initiatives as mandated by RA 1137. We would like to thank Dr. Richard Abendan, Mr. Wadel Cabrera, Ms. Dada Alarcon, and the entire RTI Upskill team for making the strategic planning happen. We would like to acknowledge the presence, of course, of Ms. Erica Adams, the Deputy Chief of Party for Operations of Upskill, who is here with us today. The Philippine startup ecosystem has been steadily growing in recent years, driven by a young and tech-savvy population, government support, and increasing investor interest. In the latest Global Startup Ecosystem Index, the country ranks 60th in the top 100, while it ranked in the 81 to 90 among emerging startup ecosystems in 2024. Global Startup Ecosystem Report of the Startup Genome. The country's startup ecosystem value also increased from $3 billion in 2022 to $6.4 billion in 2023. This is driven by the increase in the funds raised by the startups. But just to inform you that there is no separate fund for the or the RA 1137. We have individual funds coming from DOST, DICT, and DTI to implement the startup. Despite our good performance in the global rankings, the Philippines is still faced with several challenges. At the ISA steering committee level alone, among our biggest challenge is limited funds and fully dedicated staff to implement our programs. While there is a Republic Act, the support has not been provided. It's all attribution from all the government agencies involved. We also see the need to harmonize and rationalize our programs that are overlapping and develop policies to overcome bureaucratic hurdles. At the external level, there is an urgency to address the low readiness of startups for investments, which results to the lack of investors, especially in the regions. Limited access to reliable internet and internet connectivity and other infrastructure also poses challenges for startups. To address those issues and challenges, the ISA Steering Committee presents our strategy map that highlights our outcomes, targets, key result areas, and key initiatives to reach our 2030 vision, which is a Philippine startup ecosystem that sustains Filipino entrepreneurship. This vision encapsulates the aspiration for a robust and supportive environment in the Philippines that fosters the growth and success of Filipino entrepreneurs by rationalizing and harmonizing the Philippine Startup Development Program to generate results for the Innovative Startup Act. ISA also stands for incubators, startups, and accelerators, which is our primary customers, each with corresponding intended outcomes and targets by 2030. Specifically, we want to achieve the following: sustain operations for technology business incubators through strengthened higher education institution entrepreneurial capacity. Startups have access to technical and financial resources to scale and grow, and accelerators and investors adequately support the sustainability of startups. With this, we are targeting 50 new TBIs, 90% of the TBIs are self-sustaining, a 100% increase in the number of Filipino startups, 100% increase in the number of startups funded, $10 billion investments raised for startups, and 4 Filipino unicorns, among others. Quite a challenge. To achieve this, we will focus our efforts in enhancing program design and implementation, resource generation and mobilization, policy innovation, organizational strengthening, and stakeholders engagement, while we continuously deliver our initiatives and programs for startups and startup enablers. To further strengthen the Philippine startup ecosystem, these strategic priorities will be implemented. Innovation-friendly regulatory sandbox by simplifying and expediting regulatory processes for startups. Globally competitive talent pool by improving the quality of education and training programs, particularly in STEM fields, implementing policies to attract and retain skilled talent, and promoting entrepreneurship education in schools and universities. Strong collaboration among stakeholders by creating platforms and opportunities to connect startups with experienced mentors and industry experts, encouraging collaboration between startups, corporations, and government agencies, and creating a culture that values innovation and risk-taking. Enhance access to capital by streamlining government processes for startup funding, such as tax incentives and grants, encouraging the growth of venture capital funds and angel investor networks, and promoting crowdfunding platforms to provide alternative funding sources. Robust infrastructure by investing in high-speed internet connectivity and digital infrastructure, creating dedicated tech hubs and innovation centers to foster collaboration and knowledge sharing, and increasing government funding for research and development to drive innovation. For the next year, the ESA Steering Committee will be busier than ever as we have a full line of activities spread in different quarters of 2025. This includes the conduct of awareness survey on the ESA programs, relaunch of the Startup PH portal, and policy discussion to address budget limitations at the first quarter of the year. We also plan to discuss collaboration with the National Innovation Council of NEDA to harmonize our efforts and develop a unified ESA branding and communication plan at the second quarter. We also plan to conduct study visits to benchmark best practices of other global ecosystems, send startups to international events and conferences for global exposure, and conduct focus group discussions with startups and startup enablers to enhance delivery of our services and programs in the third quarter. Lastly, we will conduct a year-end review and assessment of our plans and strategies and craft new programs and initiatives for 2026 implementation by the fourth quarter, along with the conduct of the Philippine Startup Week and Startup Expo 2025. And by that time, I will transfer the baton to DICT. We are optimistic, very optimistic, that the future looks brighter for the Philippine startup ecosystem. And we need all the support that we can get from all our partners in implementing our programs and plans to achieve our vision. We have come a long way, but there are still a lot to be done. As they say, malayo na, pero malayo pa. Let's work harder together for a stronger and sustainable startup ecosystem. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay ang Filipino startup. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Lea. Dr. Lea, may we request you to please say